I like to think that toys were the motivation for me to pursue my first career in engineering. I studied mechanical engineering at the Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey, where I also learned about robotics, manufacturing, electronics, chemicals, polymers, and saw these as learning the palette, if you will, to help me create things. I knew from a very early age as a young boy that I loved to learn how to make toys and thereby have the ability to make better ones for the world. And for me to do that, I had to learn how to make things, and that's where engineering school came into play. During the course of my study as an engineering, I learned about patents and intellectual property, and that prompted me to enter law school and get yet more education and become a patent lawyer, which I am one, a registered United States patent lawyer, the 59,000th one since the start of the country. So I like to think that it's a very specialized field, but very helpful and useful, especially when it came to the toy aspect of my interests. Now, you may say, well, you started out being interested in toys as a young age, a boy, and now you've moved on to doing patent law. How did you come back to this? And why are you even here? Well, it came to be that toys are the subject of numerous patents. Many of the most iconic toys were and have been protected by patents in one form or another. But I like to say that there's other intellectual property as well, also part of my job, such as copyrights and trademarks, which are also another area of protection that's used a lot of times in the toy business. But in particular, if we're talking about patents, the intrigue there was that you can utilize engineering creative skills to help acquire exclusive rights, which is what the patents and intellectual property refers to. And for someone seeking to get into the toy world, it's both important to understand the idea of intellectual property and patents, and also to be mindful of this intellectual property because it's owned by many of the companies that are already present in the space. And so for me to become part of this world, it was to further understand what are the pieces, the pillars, if you will, that hold up the toy industry. And you'll be hearing from many others probably this evening that will be talking to you about various other aspects of the toy space having nothing to do with intellectual property or possibly overlapping. But I can tell you with certainty, as an intellectual property lawyer who's done numerous intellectual property patent particular cases on toys, that it is indeed very important to understand patents when deciding to enter the toy field, and if you're already in it, to understand it just the same, because it will always be, I believe, a very critical and instrumental avenue for individuals to both obtain advantages and also to better perfect their designs and ideas. Let's talk about the first thing I said is gaining advantages. If you were to enter into the toy space and want to contribute to a company in the toy space, providing an advantage to your future employer is something that I think would be beneficial no matter what field you're in, but in particular toys. Okay, so having a patent, having intellectual property is key because that's a piece of uh, exclusivity that belongs to you. It has the government sign of approval, and it helps you to try to sell the product. It's a good marketing pitch to say we are the only ones who can do whatever it is you've obtained in terms of intellectual property. Now, the second part of what I mentioned was trying to perfect and better designs. The intriguing thing is that that latter part was oftentimes overlooked by me when I first started my career in both the engineering space and then even in patent law. So when it comes to toys, the idea is to always try to do something that's going to be both feasible, marketable, and hopefully provide an entertainment increase than what has already previously existed. And by that I mean you're adding something to the play that has already pre-existed. Now, patents by their nature will tell people what they are about in their specifications. These are the utility patents, and then there are design patents as well. But suffice to say that if you do the proper research, including researching patents, you will be able to find in the toy space say many different ideas, some of which have been commercialized, others which have not been commercialized. But ultimately, what you will find by reading these documents is the prior efforts to bring to life designs, concepts, ideas, methods that would ultimately be the type of thing that may prevent you from getting a patent on that same type of design, idea, or method, but it ultimately will force you to try and think differently to make it better. The worst case scenario is if it's already been disclosed or patented and it's out of patent, then you're free to use that design as well. So there's many different ways you could take this information, but I think it's part of your due diligence in the toy space to know what came before. And the patents are like a living history of that you can read and find out, well, did this particular device, was it made before and did it work? So this brings me to my personal endeavors in the toy space. I've own a company myself, and the space in which I decided to go was the building block toy art. Now, the toy I am looking to and will be offering for sale later this year is in the building block toy space, which happens to be inhabited by many notable companies that you're probably all familiar with. But if you could imagine for the moment how much building block technology pre-existed the advent of my particular idea, I would tell you that it was volumes of material, both in patents and outside. And by pursuing this dream of mine to ensure that it had the longevity and not just be a pie in the sky, it was important for me to have that intellectual property both formalized and in the process of being pursued. So here, from me as an example, you can see how the company can be built around the IP, and then from that IP produce and provide the public these new creations. Obviously, marketing and so forth are other aspects of the survival of the business, but it's important that you all realize that absent that patent, even all the best marketing in the world will not prevent my competitors from just taking my idea. In fact, once they know I've carved out a niche area in the market, they can just basically take over the product thereafter. So it's important, and this is why I mentioned to obtain intellectual property before really moving forward with a toy exploit. Whether it's yourselves personally or with a company, these are all reasons why intellectual property is a critical aspect of the toy business. And certainly, I think something that, even if it's not of interest to you, to have familiarity with what it pertains to and how it could be utilized in your own area of business. Because, as I said, I believe that's a necessary uh, item that must be in the portfolio of assets of any serious toy company or operation. So far, we talked a lot about toys, we talked a lot about patents, but to get to that point, a couple of things should be noted. First off, you don't need to take the same path that I did to get to where I am today. And that's not to say you need to take engineering classes to learn how to make toys. Obviously, that's not true. There are many different skills and skill sets that allow one to be proficient in design and creating things. And many people are creative irrespective of their degrees from schooling. I chose engineering because I can tell you that with my engineering degree, I am able to understand the minutiae that go into both design, idea to concept to reality, and then the manufacturing. Both of those aspects of the skill set I obtained while in school are critical in the toy space because it gives you an idea, one, of how much your product costs, and two, what steps are necessary to ensure that it's created properly. Having an understanding of those things will help you understand the manufacturing so that, for example, you don't just believe the manufacturer, whether they're both domestic or abroad, that it's just some black box. So to me, having that background knowledge helps me speak coherently with those who are working on my project. While I myself, I'm not a mold maker by trade, I can speak in very intelligible manner with those who are and provide and convey ideas which may result in optimizations and efficiencies, thereby lowering the cost of the toy that I wish to make, which is obviously key in the toy industry to reduce costs but maintain, or if not enhance, the play factor. But I think further that it's important for you to have that understanding because toys, while both entertaining, do have requirements, regulatory requirements for passage, a lot of which can require thinking about the solutions in much the same way an engineer would. Hence my choice of undergraduate study. Now, as far as law school, unfortunately, to become a lawyer, you need to go through law school. There are exceptions, but the vast, overwhelming majority of people who wish to become lawyers must go to an ABA accredited law school. Now, law school for me was not as fun because I am more of a tech person, but that is not to say that there's not a lot of important things one can obtain from a legal education. For example, corporate formations, business law, understanding the liabilities that one might incur in making products. Toys are products, so understanding the laws that go into uh, defending oneself from a faulty product, warranties and contracts. If you have marketing that involves giveaways and contests for free product, that also implicates lottery and chance type game laws. Finally, you also have packaging laws that involve what must go on the packaging, how prevalent must it be. And while there are companies that help you to do this if, for a particular company or yourself personally, knowing the law is a great asset to have when trying to navigate all these requirements that are going to inevitably become part of the toy business in which you or your employer operate. And so, again, having that law degree, again, even if you're not a practicing attorney, is certainly useful. I say these things assuming that money's not an object, but certainly if you get these degrees that in addition to doing what I did as a practicing patent attorney in the toy space, you can utilize them elsewhere in other areas, all of which are part of the toy business. As you're probably aware, the majority of the toys that we see today are manufactured overseas, and a good portion of that, is a very, very good portion of that, is exclusively in the People's Republic of China. Now, where my degree and background really gives me an advantage is that learning about Chinese intellectual property laws and understanding their interplay with United States intellectual property laws help me to both guide clients and, again, even guide myself about how to go about maximizing protection of a particular toy or toy product. So there are different patents in China and done ones in the United States. So supposing you file for a type of patent in China, you could file for something different in the United States or the same type. Those options exist. Now, in my space, there are plenty of cases involving IP issues both in China and the United States. Sometimes having the Chinese IP is critical because there you can stop the infringements right from the source before they make it over here to the United States. Conversely, if you have the US intellectual property right, understanding the various different forums in which you can seek relief, whether it be through Amazon, through their internal programs, the US courts. There's something called the International Trade Commission that basically allows you to keep all infringing exports out of the country. These different channels and battlegrounds, if you will, are those types of considerations you have to take into account as a practitioner in the legal field, or if you're working with a company, understanding that these are alternatives that can be used to ensure that you maintain your position, you or your company maintain their position in their particular toy market space, and not unnecessarily give up market share to folks that are going in without a license or authority. This way, the law degree, in coupled with the engineering degree, will give you the ability to take a hold of a problem and be able to filter out what is the important gist of the issues and then figure out the proper places to obtain a solution. Obviously, if you work for a company and you're not yet a lawyer, or I'm not interested in doing that but have other capacity, the importance of knowing these things is to, again, be helpful to the company and for you to realize that this toy world in which you wish to enter and which a lot of us here are already in, is a very big world with many, many facets and many different players. And so having this aspect, the legal and engineering aspect, I believe, will give you at least another taste of the flavors that will come to you from this ever expanding, though very delicious field of toys and the toy industry. Well, those are all the pertinent questions that I believe would be helpful to you all this evening. However, if you should have any other questions, comments, concerns, or just like to, find out some more about the various topics that I spoke about this evening, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Miss Wendy Levy has my contact information, and if you should so ask, you can look for me online by searching Joseph Farco. I work for the firm Bachner PLLC. I'm a patent attorney partner there, and my office number is 212 506 6143. That's 212 506 6143. And I look forward to helping you all, and I look forward to hopefully having you all enjoy the products that I bring to the world later this year, and to my clients' products that as I help them to allow them to continue to do what they do and entertaining their constituents and customers elsewhere and abroad. Thank you so very much for your time this evening, and I hope you all get as much out of this as possible. Again, I thank everybody for having me on the panel. And again, I am truly honored and blessed to have known and worked with Richard for many years. And I very hope that my talk today can at least inspire you all, just as Richard inspired me. And I hope that you take that to heart, that this is somebody who wanted to see your futures blossom just like his. And nothing speaks more about a person than trying to see that others benefit and can do just as well, if not better than he. So I thank everyone again for that um, this privilege, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.